Tired of your old kitchen or bathroom? Upgrade to the home of your dreams with Manny and Courtney from CMK Construction. CMK Construction is Tampa's award-winning kitchen and bath leader for over 20 years. Right now, save $3,000 on a new kitchen and $2,000 on a new bathroom. And take advantage of our no money down and no interest financing until 2026. Imagine, design, build.
Streaming from the Tampa Bay 28 Weather Center in Studio A. This is Dennis Phillips Live Plus. Brought to you by CMK Construction, crafting Tampa's most exquisite bathrooms and kitchens.
How you doing, everybody? It is a Wednesday night edition of Dennis Phillips Live, and for a change, we are going to cut the shenanigans and the tomfoolery early on, which normally can take several minutes because we actually have a lot of stuff to get through tonight. We're going to talk about, I don't know about you guys, but when I'm scrolling through my phone, I'm scrolling, and I get a lot of weather posts for whatever reason on my phone, go figure. And half of them are talking about how there's just going to be snow in the deep south and all this cold air and all blah, blah, blah. And, of course, it's very much like the tropical season where you'll get some people who go on and post about a hurricane that's going to form in 2 or 3 weeks, and it never does, you know. So at this point, I'm now seeing that same mentality is happening in the wintertime with snowstorms. So we will throw out the disclaimer like we always do. It ain't going to happen. I mean, yeah, even a blind squirrel finds a nut from time to time. However, the GFS is just as bad in predicting long-range snowstorms as it is in hurricanes. So my point is just keep on scrolling. But next Friday, it is going to be kind of a tricky forecast for our area. All right, so let's do some lows. Got to do some lows because this is a very, as you may have seen the commercial, this is a very interactive show. We try to do as much answering Q&A and whatnot, and that's going to come into play tonight as well because Adam Walser from our I-Team is going to be here talking about HOAs. Now, he has a story that is on here that I've just noticed that is a 6-minute story. Let me tell you a little something. Our I-Team loves to do long stories, like 3, 4, 20, 25-minute stories. They're interesting. They're riveting. But I don't got time for that on DPL tonight. So what I'm going to do is Adam's going to come on a couple minutes. We're going to do some Q&A. And then once we finish television, which is at 7:58, then I will run his 6-minute story because it's a good story. It's just I don't have time to run it on DPL tonight. I'd much rather spend the time with y'all asking questions and going over stuff. So let's do some quick hellos, and we'll jump into what is going to be a very interesting Thanksgiving forecast. Anna Maria, how you doing? Janice in Sarasota. Prudy, as always, nice to see you. Say hello to your lovely daughter for us. Eric, somewhere on I-4 heading home from Disney. So, Eric, I implore you, look at the road, listen to DPL. Do not watch the screen. Trust me, I'm on it. You're not missing much of anything anyway. Lakeland's in the house with Nicole. But it's awesome that you're watching while you're coming home. So, Derek, will you tell Jason that audio has to be unplugged. Thank you very much, because we're getting the audio coming back then. And this is what we do, guys. You know, I see something's not working. I'm like, hey, can we get it fixed? And we always do. Almost always. Dominique, how you doing? Newport Richie. Howdy to you. Annie, good to see you. Venice in the house with Liz. Jules, as always, good to see you. Joel, same to you. Bonnie in Spring Hill. Teddy in St. Pete. Spring Hill with Cindy. Shirley, good to see you. Lots and lots of folks, as always. Oh, your wife is driving. Eric says the wife is driving. All right, then feel free to watch as you like. Frisco, Texas is in the house from Dave. So Chris wants to know what's up with the Diet Coke. I am a 50-50 Diet Coke, Diet Dr. Pepper. When it gets real bad during hurricane season, I rely on my Diet Dr. Pepper. But sometimes I then go back to Diet Coke a little bit. And we had this discussion a couple of days ago. You guys have to know, you can tell the difference between Diet Coke and Coke Zero. Yes? I know you can. I mean, there is a big difference. And I've heard through the grapevine that Canada Dry Ginger Ale has just changed the name from Diet Ginger Ale to Diet Zero Sugar Ginger Ale, but it's the exact same formula. I know for a fact Diet Coke and Zero Sugar Diet Coke are totally different things. And if for whatever reason Coke wants to do that nonsense like they did decades ago with the whole new Coke, Adam, you remember the new Coke thing? Adam's not listening to me, but he's on his phone. Literally. Hey, you remember that new Coke thing? Yeah, he remembers that. Well, and it just didn't fly. Did not fly. So anyway, point is I drink 50-50. All right, so let's go and take a look at what's happening locally. And then we're going to take a look at what's happening next week. Because we do definitely have some stuff going on toward the end of next Thursday, Thanksgiving, and into Friday. Jason, I'm hearing myself on that computer. So that's what's going on. I think whatever was pushed out, maybe put it back in. So see it right over there. Awesome. Thank you. All right. So anyway, there's a look at radar. All's quiet. Temperatures right now, 60s to the middle 70s. St. Pete, 75. Tampa, 73. Newport Richie at 69. Wesley Chapel, 68. Look, the next week, we have no changes. The weather will not change. Sunny skies, a bit of patchy fog. Highs in the middle 80s. See, now I'm listening. Here you go. You bring up Diet Coke and Coke Zero Sugar, and everybody starts, they start commenting. And I'm with you. I like Diet Coke. I can't take the Zero Sugar one. Let me tell you why. For me personally, the Zero Sugars taste like the real thing. No pun intended. But it has an aftertaste. So to me, Diet Coke is a totally, as Diet Dr. Pepper as well, by the way, has a totally different flavor. Regular Dr. Pepper and and Zero Sugar Dr. Pepper taste the same at first, but then you got that aftertaste, and I can't take that aftertaste. Kathy, how you doing? Linda's a Pepsi-holic. Linda, I'm going to be honest. When I go to a restaurant or when I go to a place and they say that, because I'll say I'll have a Diet Coke, and they'll say, is Pepsi okay? And I'll say no. I say, no, I can't. I cannot drink Diet Pepsi. Diet Dr. Pepper, which is a Pepsi product, yes. But like, is Diet Pepsi okay? Nope, sorry, it's not. Give me a water. I can't take it. Anyway, there's a look at right now, 73 degrees, humidity creeping up, all right? So with higher humidity comes some patchy fog in the morning. And I think we're going to see that right on through the middle of next week. 82 the high today, the low 64, both of which were 4 degrees above average. Let's go ahead and just take this full again. And we are looking at, you hear that? I don't want to hear that.
I know.
Oh, it can't. That's all right. Well, okay, we'll do it after the show then. And there's a look at the radar and satellite. All is quiet. Futurecast, partly cloudy overnight, a little bit of patchy fog. Otherwise, we're looking good. So this takes us through Thanksgiving. No. Up to Thanksgiving. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about what's happening with the holiday, the 4-day weekend as of next week. Up until then, you're going to see a lot of this. Lows in the low to mid 50s, Pasco, Hernando, Citrus. Mid to upper 50s, Hillsborough. Low to mid 60s along the coast. Rain, nothing. And you know we need the rain. Trina says, Dennis, love you. You've helped me through a lot. Now we're talking about HOA law. Well, Adam's going to be talking about that. Adam is the expert in that particular area. All right, there it is. There is a look at the 10-day. Now, this is the euro, okay? The euro brings a front through and gets us much colder by Friday into next weekend. The GFS cane does not. So let's go ahead and look at some of those models. Let's just jump right in, shall we? So this is a look at the euro. There is tomorrow morning. There is Friday morning, 50s and 60s. Saturday morning, Sunday morning, no changes at all, warm and muggy. Monday morning, still the same. Tuesday morning, still the same. Wednesday morning, still the same. Thanksgiving morning, still the same. But look at Friday. Wow. The euro blasts a cold front through. We see those numbers go down to the 40s and 30s. And by Saturday morning, we see 30s all the way down to Manatee County. That is the euro. And then Sunday morning, still cold, 30s and 40s. Monday morning, we start to see a warm up again. All right? Now, if you look at the national picture, what's happening here? There's tomorrow morning. Let's get that out of there so you can see it better. I don't want that little pop-up. There we go. All right, so there is Friday morning, Saturday morning, Sunday morning, Monday morning, no changes, Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning, and then watch how the cold air is going to start to barrel to the south. See it? There's Thanksgiving. No, that's Wednesday. There's Thanksgiving. And there, the cold air starts to really dig in the eastern third of the U.S. Now, why is that happening, you ask? I'll show you why. Here's the euro. Thursday morning, Friday, Saturday, no changes. Sunday, no changes. Monday, Tuesday, no changes. Wednesday, for travelers Wednesday, maybe a little bit of an issue across the eastern coast, but no real problem. But look at that cold air diving in from the plains. There's Thanksgiving, maybe a little bit of rain for us. Friday, look at the cold. 540 line, the freezing line, all the way down to Alabama. And look at the freezing line by Friday, all the way down to Florida, Saturday morning. But dry, so no travel conditions that are going to be a problem. But, and this is the euro keeps travel just fine with no problems. But the GFS is another story. The GFS does bring a storm across the mid-Atlantic, but look at the cold air, nowhere near us. Look at that 540 line, the mid-Atlantic. So until we, and by the way, the GFS brings a big old storm the following week across the plains. So what does that mean? The moral of the story is we are dry through next Wednesday. We are warm through next Wednesday, and then Thanksgiving. If the euro is right, a blast of cold air by Friday into the weekend. If the GFS is right, it never gets here. We're still a few days away from knowing that's 9 days out. And that, my friends, is your forecast. When we come back, Adam will be here. We're going to be talking about something which I think is very controversial. You might love them, you might hate them, but you do know about them, and that's HOAs. And that's going to continue as DPL continues. Okay, we are in a 90-second break. Jason Adams, who I call the $6 million man, walks in. Not the Jason Adams who does weather, not the Jason Adams who runs Clearwater Threshers, but the Jason Adams here. I think it's the same that it was. I think literally he just had to unplug it a little bit, and that's okay. Because again, I don't want to. I know that it's what it was. It was right there. Okay. So it's okay, but I think maybe we unplug that cord and we're probably fine. But I do, and we'll mess with it tomorrow because tomorrow, guys. Come on over, Adam. Tomorrow, I have a guest from Butterball Turkeys. Butterball Turkeys is going to tell you how to make a perfect turkey. You need a mic. You gotta get Adam a mic.
I got one.
Oh, you got your mic.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. What are you going to say about Butter?
They operate that hotline,
Yes.
at Thanksgiving Day. So when you're burning up your turkey, you call those people, 1-800 Butterball or whatever
Yes.
it is.
And there's, have you ever seen the video with Wendy who tried to burn her house down? With
no, I haven't seen that.
We run this video. It's almost it's a Thanksgiving tradition. We're back in 15 seconds on TV. Wendy was cooking a turkey that caught fire in the oven, and Raquel, who her daughter is now like 14 or 15, was in the little baby swing, 1 year old. And it is a family tradition seeing her trying to do that. All right, we are back in 2, 1. All right, welcome back to Dennis Phillips Live on the Spot. We are here with Adam Walser from our I-Team. Folks, we've been talking, by the way, tomorrow night we will have a guest on from Butterball Turkey, and you were talking about the Butterball hotline.
The hotline has saved many millions of people over the decades here.
So
They teach you how to cook it right?
that's what they say.
And you know what? They always run at Publix that generic brand, turkey,
the young turkey
breast,
thing,
yeah,
right?
But it's never good as the Butterball.
Yeah, Butterball's got
It's
that
good.
tradition there. Now, but Publix and Winn-Dixie did have a sale. I think it just
49 cents.
I bought two.
Yeah,
Because you
absolutely.
were allowed to buy two. Now, do you deep fry your turkeys or do you bake them? or
No,
what do
we
you do?
bake them, and it takes all day long. So usually I have to work on Thanksgiving, so we put it in the oven in the morning, and by the time I get home
It's
in
ready.
the evening, it's all ready to go.
You got to work this year too?
Yeah, we got to work this year, but hopefully nothing too exciting will happen.
Well-
most Thanksgivings are pretty calm.
Yeah. And luckily, usually the station does bring some Thanksgiving food
Oh yeah,
for the
absolutely.
folks who it works
they
out.
usually feed us.
So that's tomorrow night, by the way. So if you have any questions on Butterball turkeys, on how to cook your turkey, your Thanksgiving meal, check us out. We'll be here with a rep and we'll be answering Q&A. Adam, you are not here to talk turkey. You are here to talk HOA. And by the way, you have is it the same story that you showed me in the newsroom yesterday, the 6-minute one?
I'm not sure which one we're looking at. I think this is the brown grass one. That's a little different one.
Okay. All right. So here's what we're going to do. Over the next 13 minutes on TV, we're going to be talking more about what you want to talk about. Then when we continue at 8 o'clock on streaming, I'm going to run that story because it's a 6-minute story, and that's a little bit too long for this 30-minute show, but I think it's worth showing. And we're going to jump right in about HOAs. It's a love-hate relationship in Florida with HOAs, I think. Don't you think?
Absolutely. I moved to Florida about 12 and a half years ago, and they didn't really have as many when I lived in Kentucky, and when you came down here and you started looking at neighborhoods, you just about had to join an HOA. There are not many options. In fact, something like 45% of all Floridians live in an HOA community or a condo association community. So 1 out of every 2 people, more or less, deals with an HOA, and a lot of these are well run. A lot of these are actually run by the people, the boards who live in those communities, but a lot of problems can spring up as well because sometimes they're not as well managed as one would like.
So what's going on in the legislature right now? Because there's a lot going on, right? And it's going to have a big impact on folks.
And we kind of take credit for at least bringing this discussion to the part of the legislators because after we had one of our stories run, it got like 2 million views on YouTube. It went viral, and this was about a lady, and it's the one that I think is coming up on Facebook in the next little while. It was about a woman who went to jail for 7 days for having brown grass. Now, what happened was she got a number of HOA violations. She was told eventually to go to court. She talked to the judge. The judge says, you've got to take care of all these violations within a certain amount of time. 30 days, come back, prove that they're taken care of. She says she didn't get word about her court date, and she missed it, ended up getting arrested. They held her without bond for 7 days. In fact, the attorney for the HOA says, don't release her, judge, because she hasn't resodded her lawn. So they're actually looking at some of these criminal types of penalties for what are basically civil infractions and things of that nature, because these HOAs can have a tremendous amount of power. And in Florida, the law currently gives you a lot of power as an HOA. It lets you make all these rules for your community. These can be hundreds of pages long, and you often don't know that when you choose to buy a house and move into one of these neighborhoods, and then all of a sudden you find out, oh, I'm violating this, I'm getting notices about that, I'm being fined, my car's being towed or ticketed. There are all kinds of things that can go wrong if you move into one of these HOA communities and you don't play by the rules.
Well, and that is the argument. So I've been reading a lot of pro and con on this, and the argument pro, and a lot of folks are, look, you don't have to live in an HOA community if you don't want to. If you want to buy a house, just buy one that doesn't have an HOA. And I mean, I guess there's some truth to that.
Well, absolutely. But one of the problems is you've got less selection because there are so many HOA communities. So if you look at like Tampa or St. Petersburg, a lot of the homes that are not in HOA communities are in the city center, and they're very expensive. They don't have as much room if you want your dog and you want your yard and things that a lot of Floridians want. So once you start moving out of the center cities, then you're a lot of times in these communities, the suburbs more or less, where they do have these HOA types of communities and these subdivisions that are all planned communities, and that's pretty much unique to Florida. I think we have more of these HOA communities and a higher percentage of people living in HOAs than any other state. So you can choose to live somewhere else, but it's often easier and it often meets your lifestyle to have the amenities like the community pools, the walking trails, the rules to maintain the value of your neighborhoods. You know, these are all positive things. But then things can go south really quickly.
Yeah, and quickly, we got to get into a break. But I mean, I think the argument against, and look, I've actually dealt with this. I think a lot of us have at one point or another. You know, sometimes you almost feel as though that it's a power thing. Like there's some people on the board who are just into the power of being on the HOA, and they like to bully people. And I'm seeing a lot of comments, people saying the same thing. So is that what the law is trying, or whatever's going on in the legislature, they're trying to limit that?
They're trying to eliminate several things. I don't think they have the wording completely where they want it, but one representative from Miami-Dade has proposed outlawing these things and doing away with them completely. I don't think that's very realistic because there are these huge budgets, there's these huge projects, they maintain lots of these communities in a very pristine fashion. But the argument is that there are some of these that have run amok. In fact, we had one where they've spent $500,000 over lawsuits involving HOA board elections, which was money that could be better spent on some other thing. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I think there is going to be a discussion in the state legislature. It was the story about the brown grass that ended up getting a lawmaker involved in this and talking about potentially doing away with HOAs. And what he was quoting directly from our social media, where people said, I would rather live under a bridge than under an HOA.
Wow. All right, we have a lot of comments, a lot of questions. We'll be back in 90 seconds. This is a very interesting discussion on HOA. Continues on DPL. Okay, so we're in a break, but we're still live. I'm curious about, and I'm going to mention this when we come back too, that study survey that Forrest talked about yesterday that said 80% of the people that were surveyed were pro HOA. Do you know who ran that? I mean,
I don't know. I didn't see that story.
Yeah, Forrest,
probably the homeowners association.
That's what I was thinking, because that seems really high to me. Because I mean, look, I don't know. I'm just reading the comments here, and almost every one of them is negative.
This is a scenario you see a lot of times, Dennis. Is you got somebody who was a CEO at his corporation up in Chicago, and he moves down here, and he's retired, and he doesn't have as much to do, and gets on the HOA board. And this is somebody who may be used to managing hundreds of people, and this is his job now.
Well,
so
I'll tell you, I had not the president, well, maybe the president, one members of the HOA knock on my door on Christmas Eve, because we live in a big Christmas light neighborhood, and they knocked on my door and said, could you stop going on TV inviting people to come look at the Christmas lights? And I'm like, our neighborhood is decked out at Christmas time. And I'm just like, it just left such a sour taste in my mouth. And you always worry, what kind of recourse do they have? Because they have all the power, right? Oh, we're coming back up. We're back out. Oh, we're already sitting here talking about HOAs. So
we're talking about Dennis's house and the Christmas lights, if you haven't seen them.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful neighborhood. Our neighborhood has been doing Christmas lights for 4 decades. I've only been in the house for 12 years, and it is certainly, like many other neighborhoods, there are things that the board likes and the board doesn't like. And what we're talking about is how people in the comments here that are just crazy. I mean, we just discussed, Forrest did a story And I don't know where it came from, but 80% of the people surveyed said that they liked the idea of an HOA. 80%. I'm looking at the comments here, and I bet 90% are like, no, not so fast. And I think the overwhelming majority is just the fact that it's that bully mentality. It just seems, and we get that. I mean, I think most people would agree that there are definitely positive things about it to keep the neighborhood looking good, to keep things in check. But at what point does it go overboard? And you were saying during the break how often sometimes these are run by people who aren't from the area. They come from other areas, right?
Yeah, and I think that what happens is you give somebody a little bit of power, and sometimes they run amok with it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, most of the people who live in these communities don't have time to be involved in the day-to-day things, so they trust these people on the board to manage these issues. They don't show up to their meetings and vote on some of these issues, and they don't often sometimes vote for the board. Mm-hmm. And some of these communities have 2,500 people, so it's almost impossible to get a quorum to vote for anything, to show up for one meeting. So it can cause a lot of problems, especially if something goes wrong.
Well, here's what Lisa's saying. Lisa's a realtor, and she's saying every buyer is required to sign HOA disclosures, signing that they understand the rules and regulations. They're submitted bylaws, covenants. They can't say that they didn't know if they chose not to read them. That's another issue. And again, I do think there's some people that is a valid point.
That's right. But you know, like when you got your last cell phone, you had about 100 pages of documents that says, and you just scroll down to the end and you say yes. And I'm sure if your realtor's doing her job, she's going to tell you, hey, these are the things that they're particular about in this particular neighborhood. You got to have your house painted a certain color. You can't park a pickup truck in the driveway, things like this. And if you move into these communities, you do agree to abide by the rules. But the problem is, just like with everything else in our lives, and every time we sign one of these agreements, most people don't read the 67 pages of bylaws before they move in. And at that point, by the time they get those, they're going to the closing. They've already got their loan in place. They've already set the closing up. It's almost too late to back out of the deal.
All right, one more break, and we'll be back. And we're going to continue on social because I'm getting so many questions and comments, and we'll keep at them a few more minutes after TV. We'll be back in 90 seconds on the spot. Yeah, we go. And by the way, just so you know, I just banned somebody because he's trying to sell stock. So,
so I got to tell Matt to get up there. They're bringing the bees back that we talked about the other day.
Oh, you got you got to head on right after this, right? Yeah. So tell that story, Rook. Well, we have.
Yeah, I'm just going to tell, and then I can hang out later if I tell him to get going.
So
Matt,
quickly
go
tell
to the address in Team Up without me because I'm going to be a little later. They are arriving around 9 p.m. So get some shots of them arriving.
So remember the story.
I will call you as soon as I get done here.
Remember the story about the bees that were stolen, right?
Yeah, this guy, he's 84 years old, beekeeper, and someone took all his hives off his property. Yeah, and he called the sheriff's office. They came out and investigated. Turns out a contractor was clearing a lot. They cleared the wrong lot. He called somebody else to come take the bees away. And now this guy was out all his bees, and they were his livelihood because they produced quite a bit of honey every year for him.
And now you're going to.
We understand that the hives are being returned.
Okay,
so
and that's happening tonight. So
that's happening tonight. So we will see.
We're back in 10 seconds. But yeah, Adam is a busy man. And, you know, you don't work the normal 9 to 5 kind of a shift. You're all over the place in terms of time. All right, we are back in 3, 2. All right, so we are in our last literally 60 seconds of the show, at least on TV. But Adam's going to stay a little while longer. He's got another story that he's got to go do. The bees that were stolen from someone's house, they're getting them back tonight. So we're going to go over and do that. But we're going to continue for a few minutes on this conversation. It's obviously a very hot topic, and it's one that's very passionate. People feel very strongly, I think, both ways about HOAs.
Oh, absolutely.
I guess the bottom line is, you know, you got to know what you're getting into before you do it. I mean,
that's right. You got to know what you're getting into, and you got to follow the rules if you live in one of these communities, or the consequences can be pretty bad.
Absolutely. So again, thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow night with the folks from Butterball Turkey on how to make the perfect Thanksgiving meal. And we're going to continue on Facebook answering your questions for the next few minutes. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow. Okay, we are clear on streaming, and we and you know what? Actually, when you run, I'll go ahead and play your package at that point.
Okay.
But was there anything that you wanted to cover that for folks that maybe that we haven't talked about
Well,
yet?
I think one of the things that we're looking at in this hour-long special, really, I kind of fell into this when in 2024 they changed the law to say that HOAs couldn't ban people from parking commercial trucks and pickup trucks in their driveways. And the legislature passed it, it got signed into law, but pretty soon after that, people started getting these notices from their HOAs that they were going to continue enforcing their parking restrictions and doing the same things they had done before. So there are some of these loopholes in the law called Kaufman language that's, which means it's a famous lawsuit that says if they can change the bylaws as amended from time to time, if they have certain language in those, then these laws are grandfathered in. If not, they're not. So, so even after the legislature had tried to amend this and give people the right to park their work trucks and their pickup trucks in their own driveway, which they own, the neighborhoods were not allowing them to do so. So that kind of opened Pandora's box, and we started looking at a lot of these HOAs and found all kinds of problems, just literally everything from spending lots of money on management companies and lawyers to enforce all these rules, to having people thrown in jail for not following the rules or putting liens on houses and actually foreclosing on homes.
Wasn't there the one with the really tall grass too in Dunedin?
Yeah.
Was that an HOA issue?
Well, I think that was a code enforcement. I think
was
that was Kylie's story. But yeah, that was ridiculous too. That was one of those things where they were fined $250 a day.
Yeah, and it was like $30,000, $40,000,
yeah.
and I think he had to pay it.
Yeah, I think
seem
so.
to remember.
And you know, the problem with a lot of these things is that people who don't immediately address these situations can get into these scenarios where they are fined daily, and it can really add up quickly. For instance, after a certain number of times, if you're parked in your driveway and you're not allowed to in that particular community, they can tow your vehicle or they can fine you $100 a day. We talked to one guy who had like $5,000 worth of fines. He went to his HOA and eventually they waived them when he promised to come into compliance. But it took a while to get there.
You know, and Denise there's a couple comments I want to make, and I think this is interesting with Denise. She said she doesn't have any issues with the HOA, but with the fairness in governing.
Right.
And I think that's actually, kind of what you were saying earlier. It just kind of depends who's running it.
Well, right, exactly, because most of these bylaws, especially in established neighborhoods like yours, were probably written in the 80s or 90s and, amended from time to time, but they go back a way. And I think you said your neighborhood's been around 40 years?
Yeah, it was in the 70s.
Okay, so they were probably written in the 1970s, and you would have to go print them out off of, some book at the county clerk's office or something like that. But, they kind of stay consistent with it. Sometimes are changed from time to time to keep up with the times, but it is the enforcement. And you have to enforce everything equally, and that's one of the complaints. We talked to a professor over at Stetson Law School, and that's what he was saying. He said you can be a nitpicker, but you have to be that way with everybody. You can't just pick on the person who's giving you a hard time.
Yeah, you can't play favorites.
Right. Right. You can't say, okay, well, I'm going to ignore your violation because you're my buddy and live across the street, but I'm going to enforce it to that person on the other side of the neighborhood.
Because I don't like that person.
Right. And you got personalities that come into conflict. And just like everything,
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And now, what was the comment here? I can't remember. It was a valid comment. She said, gosh, I can't find it, but she said pretty much if you don't like the way the HOA is run, then you can also volunteer your time and get involved and take part in it. And I think that's a very valid comment because I think there's probably a lot of people who want nothing to do with being on the board or they don't maybe have the time. So the people, I get that. I mean, I think that does make sense.
And a lot of these HOAs really, really work with the people who live in these communities. And they say, okay, well, somebody lost their job, but their porch is about to fall in. Why don't we work to try to help them to repair their porch rather than fine them for having their porch in disrepair? That's the way you would hope that most of these associations would work, and probably the majority of them do work in that way. But you do get some of these who are just nitpicky and they're sticklers and they may only enforce things against people they don't like.
And I think that's where you get most of your issues. I believe it's more of a personal thing. I think that's the case.
And you know,
and the complainers, because like you said, people who are, like someone just said here, nothing brings a community together like an HOA letter reminding you that your trash was visible for 0.2 of a second. Truly the glue that holds civilization together.
Yeah, and a lot of us have gotten those letters. In fact, I lived in an HOA community before I moved into my current home, and I got a violation in the mail saying my garage door was dirty and needed to be pressure washed. And they took a photo, and it was included in the violation, and I pulled out the envelope, the photo, and it wasn't my house. It was a similar house number on a different street. So I had to go all the way down to the property management company's office and explain to them, you got the wrong home, and I'm not going to pay the fine, and please don't hold it against me.
Well, I'll tell you, you hit a nerve, and I'm looking forward. Now, Monday, there's a special. Now, when is the special that's running on
10 o'clock,
HOAs?
10 o'clock Monday night. So we got a primetime hour special. So thank you, Teresa, for green lighting that, because that's unusual that we actually get a news special in the middle of prime time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And no less on a Monday night football game.
Right. So Monday night football is going to be ESPN only on that particular night, but we have a hockey game right before then.
So it won't be on the spot, it'll be on our channel.
It'll be on our channel.
It'll be on
yeah,
both,
on
maybe.
Tampa Bay 28, probably on both.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's a network game. So, so ESPN owns that one as part of the whole Stanley Cup deal and all that. So,
all right.
But it'll be the Lightning and then HOAs, and I hope all of you guys will join us and give us your comments. We're going to put a QR code at the end of that so you can send us your ideas and your complaints, and we can look into things. And that's how we got most of these tips, was from people complaining.
I mean, one of the stories, and I guess this isn't the story that's on here, but you showed me a video a couple of days ago. I know you got to run.
Yeah.
The tow truck with one of our staff members, our employees, and they were towing cars out of private driveways, out of driveways.
And they were actually going around the bushes and going up behind the cars to look to see if their tags were expired. You know, the little tag in the corner. And if their tag was expired, then they were towing them from the neighborhood.
And this was right between the hurricanes of Helene and Milton.
That's
so
right.
There are trees everywhere. There's people with bigger fish to fry, I hate to say, when they're losing their house and everything else that's going on that we're all going through, that a tow truck is then running around looking for expired tags in the neighborhood.
You know, our employee, she didn't get her tag renewed in time because she was out running around covering the storms and working all the time. And, you know, they came into her driveway in the middle of the night. We got it all on the Ring camera, the surveillance cameras, and saw the guy crawling around in the bushes with his flashlight looking at the license plate and having the car towed. And they towed 10 of them out of the neighborhood in a night.
And then the police got involved.
Then the police got involved. They called the police, and they came and they told them, no, you can't do that. You're exceeding your authority.
The residents called the police, not the tow company, although I think the tow company actually threatened to call the police, and they're like, yeah, call them, please. And the deputies came, and they're like, look, if you tow this car out of this driveway, that's theft, right?
That's right.
So there you go. So interesting stuff. So again, all of these stories and others will be on Monday night, 10 o'clock, right here on your, I was about to say your ABC Action News, is forced to have it at 30 years, on your Tampa Bay 28 station. Adam, thank you so much for coming out.
Yes,
and
sir.
when is the story on the bees going to run?
Friday.
Friday. All right.
Friday.
So there you go.
Yeah, I think we're getting them back. So
that's awesome.
So 84-year-old man lost his 20 hives, but now the community's coming together, and he's going to get them back.
That's awesome. Thanks again. I appreciate you coming
by.
Thank you, sir. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and run the story, and then we'll come back and I'll answer a few more questions and we'll finish. But this is this story right here. What is this?
Okay, this is Irina Green. This is a lady who went to jail for 7 days for brown grass.
Okay. All right. Here's the story, and we'll be back. Thanks again, Adam.
Yes, sir. This is what they were showing in court, like pictures of the brown grass.
Yep.
The grass isn't always green in Irina Green's yard, thanks to a big tree that you can see in this drone video, and a drought that led the county to impose watering restrictions last year didn't help.
Looks like you got some pieces of sod here.
Green says her yard is far from the worst in Riverview's Creekview subdivision.
If you drive around my neighborhood, you'll see there's plenty of yards that are not up to par.
But so far, she's the only homeowner to actually go to jail for failing to keep her yard up to her HOA standards. It all started with notices from the HOA's management company.
And it went from the grass being brown to, there's a dent in my garage.
Dents too small to see from the road.
That was a part of my court case.
Green was also cited for having a dirty mailbox covered in mildew due to shade and moisture from that same tree.
I would assume you could probably clean that whole mailbox in a few minutes, right?
Yeah.
And for having a cargo van similar to other ones we observed in the neighborhood. The HOA filed a lawsuit against Green in Hillsborough County Court, demanding she correct the violations. She represented herself, preparing handwritten explanations that the HOA and judge rejected. Green appeared at a hearing last July in which the judge gave her an ultimatum.
My grass had to be brung up to par. He said, you can get seeds, you can do something, but you got 30 days to get it corrected. I said, fine. And he said, and if it's not done in 30 days, you're gonna go to jail.
Irene says she spent the next month correcting the violations.
I sold my van to comply. My mailbox was clean. I bought seeds and watered my grass.
But she missed her next court date.
I was supposed to receive documentation. Nothing was sent to my home. And I reached out to the courthouse several times to try to find out when was my court date.
The judge signed an order holding Green in contempt of court and issued a warrant for her arrest at the HOA attorney's request.
It is pretty extreme. It certainly is, yeah.
We asked Stetson law professor Paul Boudreau what he makes of this case.
I think it's pretty rare in a civil case for someone to have a contempt order.
Green was pulled over by a sheriff's deputy in late May after picking up her 15-year-old daughter from cheerleading practice.
When I got out, he said, Ms. Green, do you know that you have a warrant for your arrest?
She was taken to the Orient Road jail.
If they got you handcuffed behind your back?
Yes, I'm treated like a criminal.
At the jail, she got more bad news.
There was no bond, so I couldn't even go home to my family. I sat in there for 7 days. 7 days in the jailhouse, like a criminal.
To be incarcerated without bond is certainly an extreme measure and is pretty rare.
Now there's a mugshot of you right now.
Yep.
How did that make you feel, just to be put in those orange clothes?
It makes me feel horrible. Like I work hard, I work hard to buy this home, for me and my kids in a better neighborhood and environment, and to be taken to jail and to be treated like that for brown grass at my own home, it's horrible.
David Lair is a Palm Beach attorney who represents homeowners in cases against HOAs. His law partner wrote the best-selling book, Bad HOA.
You have an HOA who was quick to go after her and to use the full force that they are entitled to.
Have you ever heard of it getting to this point where someone actually goes to jail?
I have not seen that. To be clear, the association does not have the power to put you in jail. Certain other events intervened. Certainly, the judge had the right to do it. I think perhaps there could be more lenient remedies.
Green's sister-in-law, who is a paralegal, filed a petition 6 days after she was incarcerated, requesting an emergency hearing.
And I went to court, and I had to be shackled from my hands to my feet.
And you're there in civil county court, right?
Yeah.
You're the only one wearing orange, right?
Yeah, the only one.
Green's relatives sent pictures of the yard and other evidence to the judge, a different one than the judge who issued the arrest warrant. Green says an attorney for the HOA opposed her release.
He says, well, it hasn't been resodded. The whole yard needs to be resodded. And she's like, not from those pictures that I see. She's like, no, I want her released immediately.
So you were going to sit in jail while they resodded your yard?
He wanted me to continue to sit in jail and not come home to my family.
Green was released on the judge's order.
I'm Adam. I'm with ABC Action News.
We caught up with Creekview HOA attorney Francis Frischia, the one who asked for the arrest warrant outside his office.
Do you think that was kind of harsh to have her spend 7 days, I believe, in jail?
I have no comment, but I'll email you on that.
He emailed us a statement saying in part, quote, Ms. Green received notices of violations. She disregarded them. Ms. Green failed to show up in court on August 19th. Her failure to abide by the court's instruction led to the arrest warrant being issued. We called and left a business card at the Creekview HOA president's home, and we called and emailed the HOA's property management company, which issued the violations. We didn't hear back from either. Legal experts say there are lessons to be learned.
Sometimes they act in a petty manner, but if they decide that you need to do something, you need to follow the rules. And when a judge tells you to do something, you have to do it.
I think that they have way too much power. I mean, I never heard of anything like this in my life.
I'm I-Team investigator Adam Walser with photojournalist Matt McGlashan, taking action for you.
So there you go. That was a very interesting story. Again, as I said, Adam will be on Monday night, 10 o'clock. If you're unable to watch, I believe it will be available on our YouTube channel afterwards, as well as on the I-Team's page. And I believe he said it's also maybe going to run on Thanksgiving as well. So some really interesting information. And thanks again for Adam for stopping by. Lots of comments, lots of questions. And yeah, it is definitely one of those things where, I mean, I think people are very passionate both ways about it. And hopefully the special that Adam's doing on Monday will answer some of your questions also in regards to what kind of legislature is going on, because there is a lot going on out there. Look, I think everybody knows they are not going to be banning HOAs. That's just not, and I don't necessarily think that that's what the goal is. I think, as Adam said, the goal is fairness. Treat everybody the same. You know, don't treat your buddy one way and let somebody else, browbeat those people, or let a personal situation have an impact on how you handle that. And I think that's what the state is looking at and trying to avoid that. And that makes a lot of sense. I think most people would agree with that. So again, recapping what we were doing with the weather, as I said, we definitely have the potential for a cool down toward the end of next week. This is the euro, dropping us down significantly. And, like I was showing you here, you've got two lines of thinking. You have the euro, which right here brings a front right through. So no, this is the GFS actually. It's got it. No, this is GFS. This is the GFS. So if you look at the GFS, look at what the GFS does next weekend. Look at where the 540 line is, the freezing line, way up in the mid-Atlantic. See that? Way up in the mid-Atlantic. It does dig down a little bit, but not a ton. And then the GFS actually, the following, like December 1st, develops a really strong storm. But just like hurricane season, look, models aren't designed to be that accurate 12 days out. They're just not. So I don't care what model it is, it's probably not going to be very accurate that far out. But the euro, in that same time frame, look at next Friday. Look at where that 540 line goes, all the way down to central Georgia. So the euro brings the front all the way through, there it is, all the way to South Florida by Thanksgiving night. It does bring a chance of rain on Thanksgiving. Let's not bury that one. That is Thanksgiving. A chance of rain with that front coming through, and then much colder weather as that 540 line actually gets all the way down to Tallahassee and Lake City on Saturday morning. So you've got the euro bringing the freezing line to Florida, the GFS keeping it in the mid-Atlantic. So it is by no means even close to identical, right? So at this point, we don't have a solution. However, it is interesting because, let's be honest, the euro has outperformed the GFS on so many levels over the last several months. But if there is one thing that the euro is biased for, it's for cold. The euro has a propensity to over-forecast cold. So we'll see. The last go around over Halloween, it nailed it. We'll see if it does it again. So tomorrow night, we'll have an update, more travel questions, more travel explanations. And tomorrow night, the folks at Butterball will be here to talk about how to cook and prepare the perfect turkey. In fact, maybe I'll even see if we can get Wendy Ryan's video put in the computer so we can kind of share why it is such an important thing to know what you're doing on Thanksgiving when cooking your turkey. You guys have a great night. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll be back with tomorrow night with our next edition of Dennis Phillips Live. And again, thanks to Adam for stopping by. It was a really interesting show. See you guys.